A diner, drunk on his own arrogance, flung his meal at a waitress, expecting her to shrink in silence. But the quiet busboy watching wasn't just any employee, and his next words made the entire restaurant go dead silent. Now, before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel because tomorrow at the same time, we'll bring you another powerful undercover story that reveals the hidden realities behind the institutions we trust. You won't want to miss it. Alexander Chen stood at the window of his corner office, gazing at the cityscape below. 20 years ago, he'd been a recent culinary school graduate with nothing but his grandmother's recipes and a small loan. Now, as CEO of Silver Spoon, he oversaw 20 restaurants across 3 states, each built on his philosophy of exceptional food paired with impeccable service. But lately, something didn't feel right. Alexander scrolled through the latest customer reviews on his tablet, his frown deepening. The downtown flagship location, their very first restaurant, was hemorrhaging negative feedback. Waited 40 minutes for a cold food. Waitress seemed terrified of the manager. Nothing like it used to be. Save your money. He set down the tablet and picked up the quarterly report his regional manager had submitted. On paper, everything looked fine. Revenue was stable. Food costs were in line with projections. Yet the reviews told a completely different story. Alexander dialed his operations director. "Thomas, have you visited the downtown location recently?" "Last month, everything was running smoothly," Thomas replied. "Marcus has it under control." After hanging up, Alexander pulled up the restaurant's staffing records. The numbers were troubling. 5 servers had quit in the past 2 months alone. Something wasn't adding up. The following morning, Alexander called an emergency meeting with his executive team. "I want to discuss what's happening at downtown," he said, cutting straight to the point. Thomas shifted uncomfortably. "We've seen the reviews. Marcus assures me they're dealing with some staffing challenges, but nothing serious." "Nothing serious?" Alexander scrolled through the feedback. "These reviews describe a completely different restaurant than what's in your reports." The marketing director offered a practiced smile. "Online reviews can be misleading. People are more likely to post when they've had a negative experience." "And what about this?" Alexander displayed the staff turnover data. 5 servers in 2 months. Doesn't concern anyone? When no one had a satisfactory answer, Alexander stood up. "When was the last time any of you actually ate at our downtown restaurant? Not for a scheduled visit, but as a regular customer." The silence deepened. "That's what I thought. We've all gotten too comfortable in our offices. I'm going to see for myself what's happening. Not as the CEO, but as an employee." The next morning, Alexander stood in front of the mirror, scissors in hand. 30 minutes later, his distinguished look was gone, replaced by a shorter, messier cut. He added thick-framed glasses and donned faded jeans with a plain button-up shirt. Standing before the full-length mirror, Alexander barely recognized himself. He crafted a simple backstory: recently divorced, returning to the workforce after years working at his brother-in-law's now-closed catering business. Just enough details to be believable without being complicated. The application process was enlightening, the online form was clunky, and when he called to follow up, he was put on hold for nearly 10 minutes. Marcus, the manager, conducted the interview in a distracted manner, checking his phone twice during their brief conversation. He barely glanced at Alex's fabricated resume before hiring him as a busboy. Alexander arrived 15 minutes early for his first shift, taking a moment to observe the restaurant before entering. From the outside, it still looked impressive. But as he approached, he noticed signs of neglect. Fingerprints on the door handles, withered flowers in the planters. Inside, the hostess barely looked up as he entered. "We don't open until 11, she said automatically. "I'm Alex. It's my first day." Her expression shifted from disinterest to slight sympathy. "Oh, break rooms through the kitchen, to the left." Alexander walked slowly through the once familiar dining room, taking in every detail. The tables were set, but without the precision he'd once insisted upon. Silverware slightly askew, water spots on several wine glasses. The bar area, which used to gleam under soft lighting, now had a thin film of dust on the upper shelves. Several of the leather menu covers were worn at the edges, small tears evident. The signature framed photographs, pictures he'd personally taken of local farmers and suppliers, had faded from years of sunlight, with no one bothering to replace them. Even the air felt different. Gone was the inviting aroma of fresh bread baking and herbs simmering that had once greeted every guest. Instead, there was a faint smell of cleaning chemicals attempting to mask other odors rather than complement the dining experience. The kitchen presented an even more concerning picture. The once immaculate space now had grease buildup in several areas. A line cook mumbled a greeting as Alexander passed, looking exhausted despite the early hour. The knife rack, which Alexander had always insisted be organized with precision, held mismatched cutlery, some with worn handles. The specials board still displayed yesterday's date, another small but telling detail. In the break room, a young woman was adjusting her uniform tie in the small mirror. She offered a genuine smile, the first Alexander had seen since arriving. "You must be the new guy. I'm Sophie." "Alex," he replied, returning her smile. "First day." "Good luck," she said, and there was something in her tone that suggested he'd need it. "Marcus usually doesn't show up until after opening, so Jackie will get you started." As the restaurant prepared to open, Alexander observed the staff's interactions. There was none of the camaraderie he remembered from the early days. Instead, there was a palpable tension, with servers checking the time anxiously and kitchen staff barking short responses to questions. He noticed how servers avoided making eye contact with each other, each focused solely on their own section. The bartender meticulously counted bottles but recorded nothing, clearly going through motions without purpose. A hostess practiced her welcome smile in a compact mirror, but it disappeared the moment she snapped it shut. A mask put on for guests, but not an authentic expression. "Is it always this quiet before opening?" Alexander asked an older server who was rolling silverware nearby. The man glanced up briefly. "Used to be different, used to joke around, help each other prep. Now everyone's just trying to get through their shift without setting off Marcus." "What sets him off?" Alexander inquired, keeping his tone casual. The server gave a humorless laugh. "What doesn't? Asking for schedule changes, requesting time off more than 2 weeks in advance, questioning why items listed on the menu aren't available, standing up for yourself when a customer crosses the line." He lowered his voice. "Especially that last one. Marcus thinks the customer is always right, even when they're abusive." Sophie, however, maintained a positive demeanor. As she showed Alexander how to properly set up the service stations, she efficiently worked through her pre-shift checklist while answering his questions. "How long have you been here?" he asked, helping her fold napkins. "Almost 2 years," she replied. "It was great at first. Lately, it's changed." The lunch rush revealed even more problems. 2 servers called out with no replacements, leaving the floor severely understaffed. The kitchen fell behind almost immediately, with tickets backing up and food sitting under heat lamps too long. Through it all, Marcus remained in his office, emerging only when a particularly irate customer demanded to speak to a manager. During a rare lull in service, Alexander found himself wiping down tables in Sophie's section. "You're doing better than the last guy," she commented. "He quit after 2 days." "Seems like a tough place to work," Alexander ventured. Sophie sighed, checking to make sure no one was within earshot. "It didn't used to be. When I started, this place was amazing. Great tips, supportive management, everyone worked together. Then the old manager left, Marcus came in, and everything changed." "What brought you to Silver Spoon?" he asked. "The schedule, initially," Sophie admitted. "I'm in nursing school, and this place used to be great about working around my classes." She gestured subtly toward a photo tucked into her order pad, a smiling young boy missing his front teeth. "That's Ethan, my son. He's 8. It's just the 2 of us." Her expression softened momentarily before hardening again. "Now I never know when my shifts will be cut short or extended without notice." Later, during her break, Alexander found Sophie studying a thick textbook while eating a simple sandwich she'd brought from home. Pharmacology, she explained. Exam next week. Impressive. Balancing school and work. She shrugged. No choice. 2 more semesters and I'll finally be done. Alexander's third day revealed even more troubling insights. Marcus spent the majority of his time in his office, door closed, emerging only for VIP tables or to criticize staff. When corporate called for the daily numbers update, Alexander overheard him painting a completely different picture than the reality on the floor. Yes, everything's running smoothly, Marcus assured whoever was on the phone. We're fully staffed and customer satisfaction is high. The assistant manager, Vanessa, was a different problem entirely. Where Marcus was absent, she was oppressively present, micromanaging trivial details while ignoring major issues. Those water spots on that glass are unacceptable, she snapped at a server, ignoring the fact that the kitchen was running 20 minutes behind. And your tie is crooked. This isn't a diner. During a particularly large party that caused backup in the kitchen, the situation boiled over. Antonio, the head chef, called for Marcus, who reluctantly emerged from his office. We need to hold new orders for 15 minutes, Antonio explained, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked multiple stations. We're drowning back here. Marcus's response was immediate and harsh. Absolutely not. You think I'm going to tell customers they have to wait longer because you can't manage your kitchen? I've been asking for additional line cooks for 2 months, Antonio shot back, and we still have equipment that needs fixing. You want me to cook with what? Magic? Figure it out, Marcus hissed, or I'll find someone who can. During his lunch break, Alexander ventured into the dry storage area, curious about inventory management. What he found disturbed him further. Several high-end liquor bottles were clearly missing from a shipment that had been signed for. When a young server named Zoe came looking for extra napkins, Alexander casually mentioned the disorganization. Oh, that's nothing, she said, lowering her voice. Check out the walk-in sometime. We're always running out of the expensive stuff, Wagyu beef, the premium seafood, but the invoices show we received it. She glanced around nervously. Marcus has friends who run restaurants too. They're always stopping by to chat and leaving with bags, but we're not supposed to notice. The Saturday dinner service was in full swing, the restaurant packed with weekend diners. Alexander had been assigned to support Sophie's section, which included a four-top in the corner that had been demanding from the moment they arrived. Table 12 wants to speak with you again, Alexander murmured to Sophie as he cleared plates from another table. Sophie's smile remained fixed, but he caught the brief flash of exhaustion in her eyes. Third time. Let me guess. Something else is wrong with their order? The gentleman said his steak is overcooked. Alexander had been watching this table carefully. The apparent leader of the group, a loud man in an expensive suit, seemed determined to find fault with everything. I'll take care of it, Sophie said, straightening her shoulders before approaching with professional composure. I'm so sorry to hear there's an issue with your steak, sir. I'd be happy to have the kitchen prepare a new one for you. The man's response was immediate and hostile. This is the second time. How hard is it to cook a steak properly? I asked for medium rare. This is medium well at best. Alexander could clearly see the steak was perfectly medium rare. Pink in the center exactly as ordered. I sincerely apologize, sir. Sophie maintained her professional tone. I'll have the chef prepare a fresh one immediately. Don't bother, the man snapped. Where's the manager? This place used to have standards. Marcus emerged from his office looking annoyed at the interruption. After a brief conversation with Sophie, he plastered on a smile and approached table 12. I understand there's an issue with your meal, sir. What followed was a masterclass in poor management. Rather than supporting his staff, Marcus immediately threw Sophie under the bus. I apologize for the server's mistake. Rest assured, this isn't our usual standard. Your meal will be comped, of course. When a new steak arrived, identical to the first, the man cut into it and immediately scowled. This is still not right, he declared, though everyone could see the perfectly prepared medium rare center. This is ridiculous. Sophie stepped forward. Sir, I'm very sorry. It's not to your satisfaction. Would you prefer something else from the menu instead? The man looked at her with undisguised contempt. What I'd prefer is competent service. Is that too much to ask? Marcus jumped in again. Sir, please allow me to... No, the man interrupted, his voice rising. I've had enough. This place has gone downhill. The food is mediocre and the staff is worthless. Several of the nearby tables were now watching uncomfortably. Sophie maintained her composure, but Alexander could see her hands trembling slightly. I understand you're upset, sir. We want to make this right for you, she said calmly. What happened next occurred so quickly, Alexander barely had time to react. The man stood abruptly, grabbed his plate, and flung it towards Sophie. The steak slid off, splattering sauce across her uniform, while the plate clattered to the floor. Maybe that will teach you to get it right the first time, he sneered. The restaurant fell silent. Sophie stood frozen, sauce dripping from her apron. Marcus stood nearby, mouth open, but saying nothing, not defending his employee, not addressing the completely unacceptable behavior. In that moment, Alexander felt something snap inside him. 20 years of restaurant experience, of training staff to provide excellent service, of building a culture of mutual respect, all of it demolished by this customer's action and his manager's inaction. Before he could stop himself, Alexander stepped forward, positioning himself between Sophie and the irate customer. Sir, he said, his voice quiet but firm, you need to leave. Now. The arrogant customer looked genuinely shocked that a busboy would dare speak to him. Excuse me? He sputtered. Who the hell are you? Someone who won't stand by while you assault a staff member, Alexander replied, his voice level but authoritative. Despite his busboy uniform, something in his demeanor had shifted, the natural command presence of a CEO, impossible to fully disguise. Marcus finally found his voice, stepping forward with a placating gesture. Sir, please accept our deepest apologies for this employee's outburst. Alex, get back to work immediately. Alexander didn't move. No, Marcus, this has gone far enough. He turned his attention back to the customer. Sir, I understand you're dissatisfied with your meal, but throwing food at our staff is completely unacceptable behavior. We'll be happy to comp your party's entire meal, but I must ask you to leave immediately. The man's face flushed with anger. Do you have any idea who I am? I could buy and sell this place. That's irrelevant, Alexander replied calmly. We value our customers greatly, but not at the expense of our employees' dignity and safety. The other diners at the man's table were now standing, clearly mortified. One of them, a woman who appeared to be his wife, touched his arm. Richard, that's enough. Let's go. She turned to Sophie. I'm so sorry about this. With a final glare, he stormed out, his party following apologetically. As they left, several tables began to applaud quietly, nods of approval directed at Alexander. Marcus was livid. In my office! Now! He hissed. After the incident, Alexander found himself reassigned to dishwashing duties, hidden away where he couldn't interfere with customers. The kitchen staff, impressed by his defense of Sophie, began opening up to him. Over the next 2 days, Alexander gathered more information. He discovered health code violations being actively concealed, tip theft, and inventory discrepancies. A young server named Tyler accidentally entered an order incorrectly, and Marcus cornered him in the service alley. Are you completely incompetent? Marcus hissed. Do you know how much food you just wasted? That's coming out of your tips tonight. Tyler, clearly intimidated, tried to apologize. I'm sorry, it was my first time using the new system, and I don't want excuses, Marcus cut him off. One more mistake like that and you're done. Understand? Alexander followed Tyler to the break room, where the young server was trying to compose himself. Don't take it personally, Alexander said gently. Everyone makes mistakes when they're learning. Tyler wiped his eyes hastily. I can't lose this job. My mom's sick, and I'm helping with her medical bills. That afternoon, Alexander was helping in the kitchen when Antonio let out a string of curses. The walk-in refrigerator was running dangerously warm for storing perishable food. We need to throw this out, Antonio said, pointing to several containers of seafood. Vanessa, the assistant manager, hesitated. Marcus said we can't waste any more food this week. This isn't about budget, Antonio argued. This is about not poisoning customers. Alexander couldn't stay silent. Serving potentially spoiled seafood is a serious health violation. Later, he spoke with Barbara, a server who had been with Silver Spoon since the beginning. This used to be a wonderful place to work, she told him sadly. Mr. Chen, the owner, he treated us like family. The food was excellent, and we were proud to serve it. She glanced around the restaurant, lowering her voice. When Mr. Chen used to visit, he knew everyone by name, asked about my daughter's college graduation, remembered Antonio's mother was sick. He brought her soup himself, you know. Alexander felt his chest tighten with guilt and shame. When had he stopped doing those things? When had quarterly reports become more important than the people who brought his vision to life every day? What happened? Alexander asked quietly, genuinely wanting to hear her perspective. Barbara sighed, straightening a stack of napkins. Success, I suppose. The company grew. Mr. Chen stopped visiting as often. Then new managers came in, people who didn't understand what made this place special. She looked at him with surprising intensity. It's not just about the food or the service. It was about dignity. We felt valued. All of us. And now? Alexander prompted. Now? Barbara gave a hollow laugh. Now, we're just numbers on a spreadsheet. Labor costs to be minimized. She gestured towards Sophie, who was patiently dealing with another demanding table. That girl works harder than anyone I've seen in years. Reminds me of how we all used to be, back when we believed in something. Alexander thanked her and walked away, his decision made. The weight of his failure to protect what he'd built sat heavy on his shoulders. He stepped outside and called his operations director. Thomas, I need you to prepare for an emergency management change at downtown tomorrow morning. The next morning, Alexander arrived early, but not as Alex, the busboy. He wore his usual tailored suit, his hair neatly styled without the thick-framed glasses. Marcus was in his office when Alexander knocked firmly and entered without waiting for a response. Marcus looked up, irritated. We're not open yet. How did you get in? His voice trailed off as recognition slowly dawned. Mr. Chen, I wasn't expecting a visit from corporate today. I'm sure you weren't, Alexander replied evenly. But I've actually been here all week. Marcus stared at him in confusion. What do you mean, all week? You know me as Alex, the busboy you hired 5 days ago. The color drained from Marcus's face as realization hit him. 20 minutes later, Alexander stood in the dining room facing a stunned group of staff members. For those who don't know me, I'm Alexander Chen, founder and CEO of Silver Spoon Restaurants, he began. For the past week, I've been working among you as a busboy named Alex. Gasps and murmurs spread through the staff. Sophie's eyes widened in recognition, while Antonio crossed his arms with a hint of a smile. I came here because reports from management didn't match customer feedback. What I found was deeply troubling. Alexander turned his attention directly to Marcus. Under your management, this restaurant has deteriorated in every measurable way. Food quality has been compromised. Staff are mistreated and exploited. Health violations are concealed rather than addressed. Marcus attempted to interrupt. With all due respect, sir, you've only been here a few days. You don't understand the challenges of... Stop, Alexander said, his voice quiet, but carrying an authority that silenced the room. I built this company from nothing. I've worked every position in a restaurant, including managing this very location, while serving tables and washing dishes. I understand the challenges perfectly. He stepped closer to Marcus. What I don't understand is how you could betray everything this company stands for. You've skimmed from tips, manipulated schedules to punish staff, allowed customers to abuse employees, and potentially endangered public health. Alexander turned to address the entire staff. When I started Silver Spoon, I had one principle above all others. We would treat everyone, staff and customers alike, with dignity and respect. Turning back to Marcus, Alexander's expression hardened. Marcus Thompson, you're terminated, effective immediately. Please collect your personal belongings and leave the premises. Marcus's face contorted with anger. You can't just... I can and I have, Alexander interrupted. The documentation of your mismanagement is extensive. If you choose to challenge this decision, I'll be happy to share it with the labor board, the health department, and the police. With Marcus gone to collect his things, Alexander continued addressing the staff. I want to personally apologize to each of you. I failed you by not recognizing these problems sooner. That ends today. He gestured towards Sophie. Sophie, for the past week, I've watched you maintain exceptional service despite impossible circumstances. You've shown leadership, integrity, and dedication to our customers even when management failed you. I'd like to offer you the position of interim manager. Sophie's eyes widened. Me? But I don't have management experience. You have exactly what can't be taught, Alexander interrupted gently. Character and commitment. The rest, we can teach you. Sophie looked around at her fellow staff members, many of whom were nodding encouragingly. What if I mess up? She asked quietly, voicing her deepest fear. Alexander smiled. Then you'll learn from it, just like I did. I didn't know what I was doing when I opened this place either. He placed a hand on her shoulder. But you won't be doing this alone. You'll have support, training, and resources, everything Marcus should have provided but didn't. Antonio stepped forward. We've got your back, Sophie. Several other staff members voiced their agreement. Sophie's eyes glistened slightly as she straightened her shoulders. Okay, she said with newfound confidence. I'll do it. For us. For what this place should be. The subtle shift in the room was palpable. Tension giving way to cautious hope. Staff members exchanging glances not of resignation, but of possibility. Alexander then announced immediate changes. Equipment repairs, increased staffing levels, regularized scheduling, transparent tip policies, restored food quality standards, and a zero-tolerance policy for customer abuse. An executive team from corporate will be here later today to begin implementing these changes, he concluded. In the meantime, I'd like to speak with each department individually to ensure we're addressing all concerns. Before the restaurant opened for lunch service, Alexander gathered the staff one final time, with Sophie beside him. 20 years ago, I opened the first Silver Spoon right here in this building. I cooked in that kitchen. I served at these tables. I mopped these floors. Somewhere along the way, as we grew to multiple locations, I lost sight of what made us successful in the first place. Alexander paused, taking a moment to meet the eyes of several longtime employees. That was my mistake, and you all paid the price for it. For that, I am truly sorry. This restaurant was built on a simple principle, that everyone deserves dignity and respect. Not just customers, but our team members too. That's the Silver Spoon I remember, and that's the Silver Spoon we're restoring today. He pulled out a business card, holding it up for everyone to see. This has my personal cell phone number. If the changes we've promised don't happen, or if new problems arise, I want you to call me directly. No filters, no intermediaries. Later, Alexander took a moment to speak privately with Tyler. I heard about your mother's medical bills, he said quietly. I'd like to offer you more consistent hours, and if you're interested, we have a management training program that includes tuition assistance. Tyler's eyes widened. Really? That would help so much. Alexander smiled. This company was built by people who care, Tyler. We're getting back to that. What would you have done if you witnessed a manager allowing a customer to mistreat a server the way Alexander saw? Sometimes standing up for what's right means risking your own position. But as Alexander discovered, protecting your team members builds the kind of loyalty that can transform a workplace. And if you were in Sophie's position, would you have accepted the manager role? Taking on leadership after experiencing such difficulties takes courage. But it also creates an opportunity to build something better from the inside out. If you enjoyed this story of an undercover CEO, making real change. Make sure to hit that like button to help more people discover this channel. Your support means everything to us. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when we upload our next Undercover boss story. We have some incredible revelations coming that you won't want to miss. Leave your thoughts in the comments below about what you would have done in Alexander's position, or share any experiences you've had with great or terrible restaurant management. Check out our other Undercover CEO stories appearing on your screen right now, and we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time with another brand new video.